Hello, welcome. I am happy that you have taken a little time to listen to this little video. Today I would like to talk about anger. And the reason that I want to talk about anger is because in my practice, I have noticed that there's lots of issues with relationships in terms of anger, but there's kind of not a differentiation between types of anger. And I think it's really important to recognize that there are different types of anger. So we can have anger issues, right? That can be explosive, that can be painful to others and to oneself. We can say things that we might later regret we said. We can do things we might later regret that we did. Sometimes anger, though, protects us. And here's the thing with anger. Anger, as all emotions, is there for a reason. And it's there for a good reason. It's there to protect us. It's there to take care of us. So we need to listen to it. But these two different types of anger come from different places. So it's very important to recognize where your anger is coming from. So this defensive anger usually comes from a place of insecurity. It usually comes from hurt, from vulnerability. It's kind of the other side of the coin. So usually, individuals that have had parents that are authoritative, that are very critical, whose disciplinary style is shame-based, those children learn that their emotions are not okay to be expressed. So they learn to withhold, right, to withdraw. And they also learn that if I express, my true feelings, if I express sadness or if I express hurt, right, I'm vulnerable. And somehow that feels weak. So it's easier to express anger, right? We feel more in control. But this is anger that comes in a very violent and aggressive way. Now, the protective type of anger is an anger that's coming from a different place. And it's really important to recognize this because many people feel ashamed of feeling angry. So they repress it, they don't recognize it. And sometimes that brings us, into deeper issues because sometimes then we express it in a passive aggressive way. It still comes out. Now, this protective anger is necessary because if we didn't have that anger, we wouldn't be able to protect our integrity or the integrity of others, right? We wouldn't be able to defend basic human rights, our core values. So it's really important that we recognize this anger and that we know that this anger, if expressed, it comes out in an assertive way, in a way that's protecting you, that's protecting others when we see injustice, for example, right? So I'll give you a little example. I was watching some videos that came up in Facebook, and there was this teacher. And she was dragging a child through, the school, the aisles at school. And she was dragging this child. Of course, the teacher was angry. Most likely that child was not paying attention or was being disrespectful towards her. My reaction to that video was anger as well. I felt really, really angry. Now, if you think about it, her anger and my anger are not the same. They're coming from different places. And it's very, very, very important to recognize these. Because with the teacher, for example, she might be having anger issues, which are hurting definitely other people and herself. We can imagine how she reacts in her close relationships whenever she feels threatened, whenever she feels disrespected, right? My anger is coming from a protective place. right? A place of protecting a child that's vulnerable, right? And the basic needs of this child, his basic rights, right? To be treated in a fair way. So if you think about how this impacts your relationships, how do you express anger? What type of anger do you express? So it's really important to be aware of how you're feeling. When you're feeling that thing, when we feel angry, well, where is it coming from? And there's some questions that you can ask yourself to recognize, is this anger, the protective type, the one that I really need to stand up for myself and be assertive? Or is this anger coming from a more of a defensive place, right? A place that's actually, I don't want to show my true feelings, right? I'm really hurting right now. I'm really feeling vulnerable right now. But I'm going to express anger because expressing my sadness or my hurt, right, makes me feel vulnerable. So some questions that you can ask yourself is, when you feel this anger, does it seem that you can't control it? Does it seem that it's so intense, that you can't control it? When this anger comes out, is it hurtful? Does it come in a way that hurts you or hurts others? Is this anger proportional to the situation? If you think about what happened, right, and how you feel, the intensity of your feelings, is it proportional with the situation? So just think about all these things next time you feel angry, and know that it's important to listen to your anger. It's important to express it. All your feelings are important, but you need to listen what's really, really there. And if there's sadness, if there's hurt, actually know that expressing that can bring you closer to those that you love. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Let me know if there's anything that you would like to talk about, if there's any questions that you might have. And I will be very, very happy to address them and to talk about them. So until next week, have a great weekend.